High on a frozen slope in the northern Ural Mountains, searchers found an abandoned tent, half buried in snow, and slashed open from the inside. Its 9 young occupants had fled barefoot into a chilling cold. None of them would ever return alive. The winter of 1959, 10 young hikers set out from the city of Sverdlovsk, deep in the Soviet Union, bound for a remote peak called Otorten. Led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, they sought the highest rank a Soviet skier could earn. They were students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnical Institute, tough, disciplined, and in love with the wild. Among them were Zinaida Kolmogorova, Ludmila Dubinina, and Semyon Zolotaryov, a war veteran of 38 who had already seen far harder days. These were not reckless amateurs. Each had crossed frozen wilderness before, trained in navigation, cold weather survival, and the brutal logic of the taiga. Their planned route through the winter mountains was rated Category 3, the most demanding class of expedition in the entire country. On the 28th of January, one member turned back. Yuri Yudin, crippled by joint pain, said goodbye to his friends and returned to the settlement. That illness would save his life. He remained forever the last person to see the others alive. The 9 pressed north on skis, hauling heavy packs through birch forest and open snowfield. They photographed one another laughing, breath fogging the frozen air, unaware that these ordinary frames would one day become some of the most studied photographs in Soviet history. Their path led toward a bald ridge the native Mansi people called Kolapsyakal, a name that translates chillingly as Dead Mountain. Ancient legend warned travelers away from these slopes. The hikers, children of science and reason, pressed on regardless. The final photographs show them digging into the snow at dusk on the 1st of February. Figures in heavy coats shovel out a level platform for the tent, the daylight failing, the wind rising off the ridge. After these frames, the record falls silent. For reasons still debated today, Dyatlov pitched camp on the exposed mountainside itself, rather than in the sheltered forest just below. They cut into the slope, raised the canvas, ate a cold supper, and settled in for the night. Then something went terribly wrong. Sometime in the black hours before dawn, all 9 tore their way out of the tent and ran downhill into the storm. Most were in socks or entirely barefoot, without coats or boots, plunging into temperatures near 30 degrees below zero. Days passed with no word. When the group missed its telegram deadline back home, families grew frantic and pressed the Institute to act. By the 20th of February, volunteer searchers, students, soldiers, and Mansi trackers set out into the frozen mountains. On the 26th of February, searchers spotted a corner of canvas jutting from the snow on the slope of Dead Mountain. It was the missing tent, collapsed and frozen. Inside lay boots, coats, and diaries, everything the hawkers would have needed to survive. The investigators made a disturbing discovery. The tent had not been clawed open by an animal, nor torn by an intruder from outside. It had been slashed from within, cut open by the hikers themselves, in a desperate rush to escape whatever was out there. Leading away from the tent, a set of 8 or 9 footprints ran down the slope, pressed into the crust by stockinged feet and bare skin. Strangely, the prints showed no sign of panic scattering. The hikers had walked, not run, into the dark. The tracks led nearly a mile downhill to a tall cedar at the edge of the forest. There, beneath its snow-laden branches, searchers found the first 2 bodies. Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko lay by the ashes of a small fire, stripped to their underwear. Branches on the cedar had been snapped as high as 5 meters up, as though someone had climbed it in desperation, perhaps to spot the distant tent or gather wood. The little fire had long since burned out. Both young men had frozen to death. Between the cedar and the tent lay 3 more of the missing: Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin, were found in poses that suggested they had turned back, crawling uphill toward the shelter they had abandoned. Each had succumbed to the freezing night. 5 of the 9 were now accounted for, all apparent victims of the merciless cold. But 4 still remained missing, swallowed somewhere in the deepening snows of the Ural winter. The search would drag on painfully for more than 2 more agonizing months. As spring arrived, the snow began to soften and melt, and in early May, the searchers probed a ravine in a gully below the cedar. Under nearly 4 meters of hardened snow, they uncovered the last 4 members of the Dyatlov group. The final 4 had been better dressed than the others, some of them wearing clothing cut from their already dead companions. They lay together in the icy stream bed at the bottom, as if they had sought shelter in the deepest hollow they could find. But their injuries defied all explanation. Nikolai Thibault-Brignol had a fractured skull. Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotarov had massive chest injuries, ribs crushed with a force one doctor compared to a high-speed car crash, and yet their skin was barely bruised. Most unsettling of all was Lyudmila Dubinina. Her tongue, her eyes, and part of her lips were missing. Zolotaryov, too, was found without his eyes. To a frightened public, it looked like deliberate mutilation, though decay and running water may explain the loss. Then came another anomaly. Laboratory tests found traces of radioactivity on the clothing of 2 of the victims. Soviet investigators offered no clear reason for it. The finding fed dark rumors that the hikers had stumbled into something secret and something forbidden. In May of 1959, the case was quietly closed. The official verdict blamed an unknown, compelling natural force that the hikers had been powerless to overcome. The files were sealed away, and the mountain pass itself was named for Igor Dyatlov. For decades afterward, the sealed case bred a whole forest of theories. Some blamed a sudden avalanche. Others whispered of a secret military test, of parachute mines or rockets flashing over the mountains, their strange glow reported by witnesses on that very night. Investigators had first suspected the native Mansi people, but no outside footprints were ever found near the camp. Later thinkers reached for stranger causes still: escaped prisoners, weapons trials, even the old folklore of the mountain the Mansi had warned about for generations. One theory pointed to the wind itself. Fierce katabatic gusts pouring down the steep slope can generate infrasound, a low vibration said to trigger dread and panic in the human mind, perhaps driving the hikers to flee in terror from their only shelter. In 2021, 2 scientists in Switzerland offered the most rigorous answer yet. Using avalanche models and crash test data, they showed how a small, hidden slab of snow could have slid onto the sleeping hikers, crushing their chests without leaving obvious bruises. The slab avalanche study elegantly explained the injuries, the cut tent, and the desperate flight into the cold. Yet even it could not silence every question: the missing eyes and tongue, the traces of radiation, and the strangely calm footprints leading down toward the trees. Today, the pass bears Dyatlov's name, a silent memorial on the roof of the Urals. 9 skilled and hopeful young people walked into that valley and never walked out again. Whatever came for them in the dark of that February night remains to this day unknown.